everybody, welcome. I am Daniel G. Godson. This is another episode of Put It Together Conversations. Thank you for joining us. I want to welcome all our friends on Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, and Twitter. Remember, you are welcome to share this on your page. Let your friends and family join in the show. Participate. If you're watching this on replay, you can still leave us a comment or a message, and I'll make sure that they get over to John, to our guest today. If you're watching us on YouTube, would do me a favor and scroll down and hit that subscribe button and hit the like button. That would really help us out a whole lot. Thank you. My guest today, and I know every time I get on the show, I'm like, my guest today is very special because they're all special. And obviously, me being the producer of my shows, I handpick my guests. But today's guest has a lot to do in my professional career, and the way that the last year I've really built it up. John Swanbeck, he is an author, columnist, speaker, and creator of a revolutionary approach to performance on camera. Through his innovative and dynamic techniques, John shows actors how to create from the camera's perspective and how to develop their unique cinematic power and voice on camera. He publishes his insights and techniques daily on social media, on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. His first book, How to Steal the Scene and End Up Playing the Lead, is available in paperback on Amazon. And I have that book, and we're going to show the cover in a minute. But if you have seen my YouTube videos, if you follow me on YouTube and you've seen some of the latest auditions that I've posted and stuff, he has something to do with that. So I'm going to bring him up. Hello, John.
Hello, Daniel.
How are you doing, sir?
I'm doing great now that I'm here.
Good. Thank you for taking time. I know that your schedule is always busy and hectic, and this is why we made some special time to make sure that you were. I've been wanting to have you on since I met you. And for those of you, I first met John because I usually tell people how we met. I met John because I submitted to be part of a student work class, a directing class at, I just lost the school.
Columbia College, Hollywood.
Exactly. And I went, and it was really cool because we were supposed to bring in our own script, and then they gave us something like in the moment. And then, by the way, that was a really excellent class. I really learned a lot from that class, even though I was just the actor they were using. But really great school. So if you're looking for a school, that's an excellent school to go to. Yes. So John was the professor in that class, the instructor, and then I got an email and saying, hey, I have this workshop classes, and I joined. Now I went to one in-person class right before the lockdown, and then like 2 weeks later, the lockdown happened, and we went virtual, and we've been virtual since, which is really awesome. So that's how we met. So thank you for being here.
Of course. Thank you for having me.
How long had you been teaching for the school?
On and off for about 7 years.
Oh, wow.
Not all the time, but whenever I can work my schedule, I go up and I work with their directors, and I actually work with their actors as well. Their acting program didn't really have an on-camera component. Certainly an on-camera component that taught from my perspective, which is the camera's perspective, and showing actors how to think like the camera. So they didn't have that. And so I took over the on-camera acting classes, and I also teach the directors how to direct actors. So I get up there when I can.
That's awesome. That's cool. And we'll put up some more information about John and when we get going. But this is about you. This episode is about you. So John Swanbeck, tell us how you put it together.
How do I put it together? Well, you introduced it very nicely, and it can lead to whatever we want to talk about. But I put it together from the camera's perspective. I think I'm unique in that I'm probably the only one that shows actors how to create from the camera's perspective, shows them how to think like the camera, and how to use their actor's process on camera. I think the actor's process does a really great job of showing them how to analyze a script and break down a script and connect to material to be real, but it doesn't really show them how to create from the camera's perspective. I think that actors are taught, if they connect with the material, their ideas that they get from their process will end up on camera, which is not the case. And I think they're also told, just really take care of your actor's process, and a director will come along and make it work on camera, which is also not the case. So I've been working for a number of years with actors on camera, and I have devised a whole approach and devised techniques that show actors how to take that process and make it work on camera. I basically teach from the camera's perspective and show them how to create cinematic power on camera and develop their cinematic voice. So it's just the way I look at things. I look at things from through the camera's eyes. Like I said, I think I'm unique in that respect, and I really enjoy it. I enjoy working with actors and showing them how to create their cinematic voice.
Cool. Can we go back a little bit, like before this became, like, when you were younger? Was entertainment, was film something that was like, that's what I want to do when I grow up? Was it always part of your vision?
No. Actually, a million years ago, when I launched myself into the world, it was just friends that I was hanging out with who were also actors, and they would ask me if I would read with them. They had an audition coming up, or they had a project coming up, and would I read with them? And sure, why not? And then in reading with them, we would, I would say, hey, by the way, you should think about this. And then they'd say, oh, you have sort of an interesting eye, interesting insight into all this. Can I hire you to coach me? And I would say, this is not my thing. I'm just talking. And they said, that's okay. I just want to hear what you have to say. And I would work with them to get ready for projects or auditions or whatever. So maybe that had something to do with my ability to come at it from a unique perspective, as I wasn't schooled or trained in any techniques. I was only just ever responding to the human being. I like to look at things from the camera's perspective, and I should say I can't help but look at things through the camera's perspective, and I'm always looking more at the human being than I am anything else. So when I work with an actor on camera or not on camera, but it seems to be on camera mostly at this point in my life, I'm trying to actually create human behavior. I was just prepping my the class that you were in. You remember I give a weekly talk before the online session, and I was just in the middle of working on this week's talk, and it's about human emotion and which emotions the camera likes, which emotions work best on camera, which emotions the camera responds to, how to combine emotions on camera, because it's not a science, it's an art, and you have to know how to sort of mix different emotions on camera in order to create a real, believable, interesting human being on camera. And so I was always more interested in the human being than I was in necessarily the project that somebody was bringing me in to help them prepare for. So it's the camera's perspective and the human perspective that kind of guide my thinking.
There has to be a place where that human curiosity comes from. Were you always that curious about people as a child and growing up?
Yes. My grade school, not even my high school, my grade school yearbook, like 5th, 6th grade. Like, what do you want to be when you grow up, or what interests you? And I said my interest was human beings. I was in like 5th or 6th grade, and at the time after I wrote that, I thought, oh, that's really corny. That sounds obnoxious, but it was true. I've just always been fascinated with human beings, human behavior.
Because I figured that to have that kind of insight into what an action will cause, what reaction an action will cause. That's what I was trying to get. Like, there has to be a lot of time observing people on a regular basis. Does that make sense?
Sure. Yes, it does. Yeah. I spend a lot of time doing that, analyzing that, writing about that, and then trying to get actors to create along those lines. Actors, this, actors are taught to create, their approach is very script oriented. Their relationship with the material. And I sort of like to sidestep that and think about, approaching things humanistically, as much as the text, if not more so in many cases. So I do spend a lot of time observing human behavior, writing about human behavior, communicating to actors about human behavior, in conjunction with the material. But I think they leave out a large part of what really is magical on camera if they're simply applying their wonderful actors process to a wonderful piece of material. I think they miss a good component.
Because I remember the class that I did in person. It reminded me of that sociology work. I mean, that exercise. I think everybody who went to college and took sociology, we all did that same, where you go stand in a public place and just stand and observe people observing you.
Right.
And the dynamic of that action and reaction moment. Because at a certain point, you don't know who's acting and who's reacting. Does that make sense?
Yes. Yeah, you're right. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, that makes really good sense. And yeah, I guess the sessions tend to have that sort of studying of human behavior about them, and bringing human behavior to the actor's work, as much as you're bringing ideas they get from the material. To me, it's when people say, "What do you do?" I say, I'm part explorer, part poet, and what I do is explore human behavior in the film frame. That's what I'm interested in doing, is exploring human behavior in the film frame, because the film camera can understand whatever it's looking at better than any human being could. So the film camera understands human behavior better than we do. So if you can look at the human behavior through the film camera, you're going to get a much more objective, much more thorough understanding of human behavior. So when people say to me, "Here's this script, can you help me prepare for it?" I said, I always say, I have to wait until I see you on camera. I can read it ahead of time and we can talk about it, but it's not going to be until I see you on camera acting using your wonderful actors process, using the script, and also using the film camera. It's not until I see those things working together. It's not until I see you in the frame that I'm going to know what the right choice is. I tell actors all the time, the right choice isn't in the script. The right choice is in the actor. So you have to see the actor connecting with the material on camera before you know what to do with it. Otherwise, you're leaving out that whole component. And you can make a choice with a film script, but when you get on camera, your choice may not end up looking on camera like it did in your imagination when you connected with the material. Right. Everything changes on camera.
And that was interesting, because I remember that class that we went into. I remember the script was very dramatic, and having this instinct. And I think you've taught me this. There is one way that Daniel G. Garza looks at the situation, but there's a very different way that the character's looking at the situation. And if I don't have his story, then I keep trying to intersect my ideas. And then the camera catches that because I'm thinking of what my next step would be. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes great sense. Then the camera captures you thinking and feeling.
Yeah, because I feel like the camera doesn't just add 10 pounds, it adds 10 thoughts to your brain, because people can see everything that you're thinking and everything you're feeling as the person, not the character. Does that make sense? I'm
going to steal that. Yeah, there's nowhere to run. There's nowhere to run. There's nowhere to hide. And if you just think and feel on camera, genuinely think and genuinely feel, the camera's going to get it. which has to do, there's this whole creative, humanistic component to working with the camera. But of course, we all know, the camera's about sort of being and feeling and thinking. It's not about showing, because if you show on camera, you're going to overact. That's that whole thing. So if you just think and feel, the camera will read it, catch it, grab it, give it to the audience. Which is why it's a challenge for a lot of actors when they're first trying to conquer the film camera and they realize how little movement they can get away with. And any actor listening, I'm sure, is aware of this and deals with this all the time. It's like, I'm always trying to deal with how little I can move and yet still create something. But that, that's the reason why, is the camera can capture what you're thinking and feeling. The camera does all the work.
Before we continue, I want to remind everybody you're watching Put It Together Conversations. I'm your host, Daniel G. Garza. My guest today is Mr. John Swanbeck. He's a speaker, coach, my coach, and we're talking about camera presence. But I want to add to that, because in your class, not only have I learned how to work with the camera, but it's also helped me in like other aspects of my life, even in my public speaking, when I'm now where everything has been virtual the last year, but even in talking to people. And for those of you who use Zoom a lot and are still virtually meeting, this is a great idea, because the camera is right there. You don't need to move too much. Because the camera catches, the camera catches everything. But how did you come to that idea? Because we do still see films and actors that are all over the screen. And even I've used that technique here on the show, where I try to stay pretty connected so that people aren't distracted. How did you come to that conclusion?
I don't know. I don't really know. I just, the first time I ever looked through a camera at an actor, I remember I thought to myself, oh, I think I understand something here that I don't hear other people talking about. So I think it's just an innate, instinctual understanding. If that's okay to say that. I just think it's sort of natural to me, which is why I'm so passionate about sharing that insight and that way into cinematic power with actors, because I do think it's unique. What was I going to say? Oh, you asked me something so interesting.
About standing still on camera?
Oh, no, you said, it helps you in more ways than just your acting. As you know, and I would love it if any of your viewers joined me. I publish cinematic quotes, tips, techniques pretty much daily on Instagram and Facebook, of course, and Twitter and YouTube, and now even TikTok. And I hear from writers, directors, producers, and people outside the business. I hear from lawyers, I hear from business people all the time. I know that you publish these things mostly for actors, which is not entirely true, but that's the way they're understood. I know that you publish these things mostly for actors, but I get so much out of them. They help me with my business. They help me as a lawyer. They help me, and I hear that all the time. People who have nothing to do with show business or the entertainment business tell me that they find something of value, something insightful, something they can use for their business, their professional life, even their personal life, from those quotes or ideas, which I find really, really cool. And as a matter of fact, in the coming couple of years, I'll still always work with actors, but I'm sort of broadening what I do to reach people more specifically outside the business. And there's a couple of projects and books that I'm working on now that have to do with that, but it's a little ways off.
That's cool. Yeah, because doing public speaking, which I do for my work, there is acting in the public speaking. There's acting in the way I share my story, where I pause, where I look at the audience a little more, or I point at somebody specific in the audience. I believe, and I'd like to hear your opinion on this, I believe that even people who are like, oh, I keep it real all the time, even in that, there is a measure of acting. Does that make sense?
It does make sense. There's a measure of acting. There's a measure of performance, however you look at it. And one of the aspects of what I'm planning for the next couple of years with regards to this sort of broadening out beyond just the acting profession, everyone on the planet is on camera now. You can have nothing to do with acting, and yet you're on camera. I think COVID had a lot to do with sort of escalating that, but it's been happening for a number of years now, and now the camera is just a part of so many people's lives, and a lot of those people have nothing to do with acting. But when you communicate with people, this is what I think you're saying, communication is acting. Communication is performing. When you're communicating with any human being in your life, any human being in any social or business situation, in order to get your thoughts and feelings from inside here to there, acting is just communication. It's just the art of communication. And I think you're right. I think, anybody, not just actors, they have to think that way. They're communicating and they're performing, which is acting. So I think you're right.
Yeah, because as you mentioned, lawyers. We just witnessed on TV one of the biggest court cases that we've seen in a long time. The lawyers have to act for the jury and make sure that their message comes across in the way that they do it. And talking about pauses and moments and then you translate that over. How many people on TikTok do we see that are like, TikTok definitely blew up. I'm even on TikTok. So how some people catch your attention more than others, but they've learned the art of the pause and the right influence, making that one word sticks out over another. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes great sense. Yeah, and we'll of course, now that we both know, we will join each other on TikTok.
Yes, of course. I didn't know you were on. I'm going to totally follow you. By the way, for the folks, everybody watching, here is his website. So you can go, and at the top of the website is all the links to his social media pages, so you can follow along and join him. But so now I know some of your story, but I want to have you. You said you started by reading for other people. But did you get in front of the camera? Were you acting and then directing, and then was that your process?
Sometimes by accident, but not really. I'm asked. I'm asked on occasion to act in someone's film. And maybe it's just my look has that sort of villainous type they want, that sort of. And I can do a good villain, I have to admit, but maybe that's an extension of my real life. No, kidding. And I'm not plugging for movies, so don't anyone contact Daniel. How can we get a hold of Swanbeck? I'm not plugging here. And I have so far resisted that. I've resisted being in anyone's film. And I actually am not really. I've directed, but I've never really considered myself a director or been a director. But I've been asked to direct just as an extension of what I've done. But yeah, neither one were really my sort of focus. And acting, no, I haven't taken the plunge yet.
So yes, for anybody out there watching. No, he will not do it. Maybe when I write my script, I'll come to him and be like, "Hi, John, I need a bad guy in my film."
Anything for you, Daniel. Anything.
Don't make my ego grow, because it doesn't take much for that. I want to show everybody. I've got his book. This is How to Steal the Scene and End Up Playing the Lead. You can. It's on Amazon. You can go find it. But how did the idea for the book come about?
Well, so what happened when I first started writing about what I understood about the camera and working with actors on camera and actors being on camera, sort of everything we've been talking about. Someone heard me in a Q&A, I guess, or something, and someone from backstage, and they said, "Would you write an article for us?" So I wrote an article for Backstage, and the day it came out, I'll never forget this. I don't know what I was doing in my apartment, writing something, I forget. And I got the alert on my phone that Backstage was, publishing this article. So I went up and looked over, picked it up and said, who's sending me an alert? And I picked it up and I saw, they had just sort of posted the column, the article. And I thought, oh, that was great. So I put the phone down and I started to walk away, and I get another alert. I'm like a couple of feet from the phone. Oh, okay. So I turned back, looking, another alert about the article. Great. I turn around, I start to walk away again, another alert. I go back, another alert. It went on for days. And I thought, oh, I think that's a voice from the universe that I have to sort of pursue this aspect of all of this, what I communicate. So I did publish a number of articles for a few years for Backstage, and then along the way, I wanted to write a book as well. And I sat down. First, I looked at, I researched how many acting books are out there, and it's a staggering amount. At the time, I think it was 1,500 acting books were available on Amazon. And I thought, I better think of something unique. And I noticed that a lot of them were about theory. And I didn't want to write a book about theory. I wanted to write a book that was very practical, that, that said, if you do this, you'll get this. Or if you're in this situation and you do this, you'll get this. As I like to say, it's, not theories, it's solutions. So I sat down to write it, and it was also when e-publishing was really kind of starting to catch on. And I knew I didn't want to write a long book. So I knew I wanted to keep it short because of, digital publishing and the internet. And yet I wanted it to have a lot of impact. And I think that combination ended up being really fortuitous, because I hear from people all the time that say it packs a lot of valuable wisdom and practical tools and techniques into a very few words. And it's really great to hear that, because that was the goal. And then I also wanted to create something that was, like I said, solutions that that you could have in the back pocket, on set, and you'd say, oh, what did John say about how to do a close-up? What did John say about blah, blah, blah? And you could pull it up and pull up the chapter, and there would be the 1, 2, 3 step solution for how to accomplish this. And I believe it's been very successful in that regard. I think that's one of the reasons why it still does well. I published it a few years ago, and I don't even have time to promote it because I'm just busy doing, what we had talked about and other things. And I don't even promote it, but it still does really well. So that's really great to hear. And I hear from people all the time that say that it's unusual for them to come across a book that packs so much into such a concise format.
Yeah.
So
I'll show it again for everybody who's looking for a good book. I have it here. It's in my library. So How to Steal the Scene and End Up Playing the Lead. And let me tell you, if you are if you're taking a class, if you're wanting to get into a class, I would read this book first, and it would give you a very good. It feels like a hands-on book. It doesn't feel, because I've read acting books, and I finished reading, and I'm like, I still don't know what I'm supposed to do. Like, I like what you said. It's a solution. Give me a solution to the question I have, not more work. Like, I want to put the work on camera, not in the book, if that makes sense.
that makes great. Go ahead.
No, I was going to remind everybody, we are halfway through our show. You're watching Put It Together Conversations. I'm your host, Daniel G. Garza. My guest today is author, coach, my coach. I like to say my coach, John Swanbeck. We're talking about acting and his methods and how they work actually in real life, if you think about it. And right now we're discussing how he put his book together.
Yeah, the
when
other
you oh, go ahead, go ahead. Sorry, you were going to add something. Yeah.
Yeah, I was just going to say about the book. What to follow up on what you just said. I always like to say it's not a book you read; it's a book you use. It's not a book you read; it's a book you use. And I hear from actors and directors who say they use it on set in auditions or on set all the time, and that nothing makes me happier because that was the plan.
Let me ask you this, because in the class we are taught, or we're encouraged. Let me put that word encouraged. We're encouraged to follow our instinct and trust our gut on the character, and like how would your character react to this? Is there a time in movie making where my gut instinct as an actor trumps what the director is telling me to do?
Whoa, this is a different lane. Oh boy. Okay. I definitely think that the camera trumps everybody. That the director can have ideas about a performance, the actor can have ideas about a performance. However they come together, the camera wins. Always the camera wins. And how things end up on camera. So you can't come up with an idea. If it's the actor, you can't come up with an idea but hope it works on camera. And if it doesn't work on camera, you just try to do it harder or something like that. You have to take your cues from how the camera thinks. I absolutely believe that, whether you're a director putting a performance together or an actor putting a performance together, or the two of them working together. Because we all pick up scripts and we have ideas for how we want the story to go, or what we want the character to be, or the director has the vision. And because it's our vision and it's based on our processes or ideas, and we really want it to work, and then put it on camera and it doesn't work, we'll do it again, and we'll do it again. And somebody will say, it's getting there, it's getting there. And I tell actors and directors both, the last 3 words you should ever hear yourself saying on a set are, it's getting there. It should never just be getting there. It doesn't mean the process is complete, but you should be able to create something usable, believable, and interesting in one take. Usable in that you can edit it into performance, believable in that it's believable and real, and interesting in that it pulls the audience into the film frame. Not that the work is done or complete, but working on set is not about it's getting there. It's about creating takes. You can start to fold into a story, even though you're still going to be working on it. So I really think that's one of the big disconnects between the actor's process and the director's process. And a lot of directors don't think about, a lot of them do, but a lot of them don't think about the film camera the way I'm talking about with regards to performance. They just don't. It's not that's why they have auditions. This is something actors don't understand. A lot of directors aren't looking to sort of show actors how to make something work on camera. They want to audition to find people who know how to do that. And that's a big disconnect for actors. But I think that when an actor is putting something on camera, yes, like I said, the camera trumps everything. But then your question was actors and directors, and you weren't really talking about the camera. And I think, well, the director has the third eye, the objective eye. And I think also, if the director is good, they're going to understand what works on camera. And so they're going to be able to say to the actor, I know you don't feel it, but this works on camera. I mean, how many times has an actor said, a director said, great, we got it. And the actor says, no, I want to do it again. It didn't feel right. It didn't feel right. And the director's like, no, we got it. We got to move on. No. Oh, we get all upset because you didn't get to do it again. And that's why the director's there. The director's there to say, no, it works, because a lot of times the actor's process was not designed to work on camera. It wasn't, which is why the 7 words you never hear in acting class are, and here's why it works on camera. It wasn't designed for that. It was designed for something else. And then the director comes along and makes it work on camera, which doesn't happen. That's not reality. So actors don't always understand when they're putting the whole thing together how it's going to end up looking on camera. And they might feel sometimes, I'm sure you've had this experience, and all of your actor viewers have had this experience where they feel, it's not working, and the director says, "We got it," or they feel like, "That was awesome. That really felt amazing." They're just like, "No, we're not there yet." Just because the actor doesn't understand how things are going to end up on camera. The process wasn't designed for it. Actors weren't trained to think like the camera. They were trained in their process and to think about scripts. So I think if the director is a good director of actors, that you would be smart to listen to the director. And actors are also taught everything's about how it feels to them. Does it feel real? And quite often, an actor will think something feels real to them, but it ends up not being believable on camera, because when you're just focused on how something feels to you, you stop. Once it feels real to you, you stop, because you think, "That's it, I got it." And so you stop thinking about beyond that, because you're trained to make sure it feels real to you. So there's a lot of times where actors will think something works because it feels real to them, and it's just not happening on camera. I mean, how many times has an actor walked out of an audition and said, "Nailed it, I really nailed it"? And I can promise you, a lot of those times inside the audition, they're thinking, "There's nothing there." No, and this is not, I'm not trying to be funny, although
I'm laughing because you described some of the things that I was doing when I first took your class, and I'm glad that, because I follow you obviously on Twitter. I'm sorry, Twitter, on Instagram. So I read your post, and you've talked about the camera being that third person in the room, pretty much. And so I was hoping you would get there, because I knew you would. How the camera, even here, and that's why I have Christian, my boyfriend, come in before the show starts to look at me and like, do I look okay? Because what I see, or what I think I'm seeing, may not be what he sees. And it's a difference. I learned that from you. I learned that from you. So, but I was laughing because, yes, there's been times when I walked out of my audition, I'm like, "Ha ha, awesome!" And then some of the places you audition will send you your clip for you to look at, and then I look at it, I'm like, what was I thinking? What was I thinking? Does that make sense?
Yeah, I see that from actors all the time, like exactly what you say, where they, because in the in-person class that you talked about, which hopefully I'll get back to soon, we're all waiting for the timing of everything. As you know, there's a big monitor there, and the actor will work on camera, and I'll work with the actor on camera, and then we look at the clip afterwards. And I can't tell you how many times actors have had that experience where we'll look at the clip and they'll look at it and think, "Oh my gosh, that doesn't look anything like I felt." and it's and which is partly why I exist, to show them how to, take the process and how they feel and put it together in a different way. It's some people, when they first encounter it, they think it's contrary to the actor's process, but I don't think it is at all. I think it's highly complementary. It's just showing you how to take the actor's process and sort of rearrange the elements so that they're in sync with how the camera works and how the camera thinks.
Yeah, because I remember the first time walking in and not knowing your process other than from the class that I was in, which was really intended for the directors, not for me. But sitting in your classroom, and for the folks, I walked in and I didn't know I was supposed to have something prepared, so I grabbed a script from your table, and you had a stack of scripts, and which I still have that script on my phone. It's snapshot on my phone. And I remember the first thing you told me is like, just take it down. Just like, you don't need, because I was like, I was a very mad character, and I was trying to show them how mad I was. And watching that first one, I was like, ooh, like, what am I doing? And then at the end of the class, watching that last tape and going, oh, wow. And really feeling proud of myself and going, hey, everybody, that was me right there. That's me. How do you know? I guess we're going back to watching people, but do you have different styles when you work for different actors, or does your work? Does it make sense? Like one size fits all, or do you have?
Actors work differently. You know this. We all know this. Actors work differently, and I think anyone who's working with actors in any capacity knows that you need to respond to the particular actor. To some degree, you do, but the film camera trumps all of us, and I take my cues more from the camera than I do the actor. Now they're working in conjunction. I see it as a sort of a three-prong package where it's it's the actor, it's the script, and it's the camera. And I think a lot of people think it's the actor and the script, and the camera's just there to record them. But I think the camera's a part of the creative process, and I take my cues from the camera first, and then probably the human being second, and then possibly the script third. Although every situation's a new one. Every time an actor gets on camera with a script, there is no bringing an agenda to the table. It's how the things fall together, and you have to understand how actors work. You have to understand how human behavior. You have to understand how the camera thinks. You have to understand material. And I'm a writer in my way, so I completely understand the sanctity of the material. But it all ends up coming together on camera, and so I'm very passionate about the fact that we all should take our cues from the camera. Otherwise, it doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah. I always feel like it's one of those things. Now I think this way. It's like there's your version, my version, and the real version. And I always feel like the camera is my most honest version, which is why even when I submit videos for presentations or videos for classroom stuff, I used to be very cocky and be like, it's great, I'll just send it in. And now I really take a look at it and go, like, why did you pause there? That doesn't make any sense. Or
it's the argument.
Yeah. Before we go into the last 15 minutes of the show, for anybody who's out there who wants to get into acting or has been acting, are there 3 habits that we have as actors that we should just like forget about?
Yes. Let's say there's only 3. There might be 1 or 2 more. Habits. Well, I think on camera, we all, and you're talking about this, the biggest is that you need to show what you're thinking and feeling. And you don't. You just need to genuinely think it and feel it. And I don't even think that comes from theater. I get actors all the time saying, "Oh yeah, theater is different from film." And I don't think so. I think I don't think you can get away with the amount of movement some actors like to do on stage, because you'd be upstaging everybody. It would be crazy. You're told, move down there, and if there's blocking, you block. But otherwise, there's an elegance to stage, just as there is an elegance to camera. And I think definitely on camera, there's that habit. There's the habit of I need to. It's not show and tell, it's think and feel. On camera, it's not show and tell, it's think and feel. And really trusting the camera, which, I guess is part of that bad habit. You have to trust the camera. Your relationship with the camera is the most honest relationship you have, because you can't, unlike with human beings, you can't lie to it. You can't outsmart it. You can't negotiate it with it. You have to submit to the camera. So I think that's a big one. I think, and that's probably one of the toughest for actors to really understand. But I can prove it to them. If any of you viewers go off and whatever they're streaming, whatever movie or series they're streaming tonight, this week, whenever, watch it with the volume muted for about 10 to 15 minutes. And you're going to say to yourself, oh my gosh, no one's moving. No one's moving. And then you're going to notice that the character still exists, even if we can't hear the dialogue. And then you're going to notice that what the character's thinking and feeling is always more interesting than anything else happening. And it's often not what they're talking about. So it's the best advice I can give to actors is watch it with the volume muted, and it's one of the best things you can understand about acting. Another bad habit is that they don't put themselves on camera every day. They wait until they have an audition or they're doing a project, and then they'll, work on the audition, and they'll do 40 takes to do the audition. And a lot of that is because they're not comfortable being on camera. And how many times has an actor had this experience where they put an audition on tape, they do 20 takes, and they look back and the first take is the best one? Because the first take, they didn't really care yet. They were just warming up. And so they weren't doing too much. And I like to think that the best takes ever for an actor are the first take, because they don't care yet. They're not really trying to nail it yet. And the last take, because they're exhausted and they just give up. And so the first and last takes tend to be the most believable, most real, most natural. But that's a bad habit, I think, for actors, is they don't put themselves on camera every single day. Even if you don't have a project or an audition, just put yourself on camera for 15 minutes. Pick up a scene, do a monologue, because there's something about that camera, and you know this, there's something about that camera, when it points at us, we're completely self-conscious. And we're just very uncomfortable. And the reason why our favorite film and television actors don't have a problem with this is because they're on film sets every day. And it's almost like they're bored with being on camera. And I don't mean that they're bored or they're bored with the work. I just mean that they're not all freaking out about the fact that they're on camera. And just being on camera every day can make you a natural. And I know there are some actors who think, I got it, stand still, I got it, I'm supposed to stand still. And then they wait until the audition or they're shooting something and they'll say, okay, now I got to stand still. And they look completely stiff standing still. It's because they're not used to standing still and just breathing and listening. They're just not used to it. So you can't really fool the camera into thinking you're just going to stand still and everything will work, because you'll just look awkward.
Yeah. So we're down to the last 15 minutes. For everybody watching, this is Putting Together Conversations. I'm your host, Daniel G. Garza. My guest today is Mr. John Swanbeck, and we're talking about acting techniques, putting the work in, and mute yourself, which before I go into the next segment, before we finish, I recently had an audition where there was no script, there was no dialogue, there was a storyline, and it was all going to be just images and CGI. And so they had me send in a 1-minute video of me going through 4 different emotions, but very seamlessly, just kind of transition from one emotion to another in a video. But there was no dialogue. So Christian and I, Christian, who's become my boyfriend, my partner, who's become my reading partner and director, I don't put that in quote, he's been my director in some of my stuff. We just did like this 15 seconds of each emotion. And when I watched them back, of course, the first person I thought about was you. I'm like, what would John say about this audition? Because there was no words. It was just emotions. And I had to take the folks watching on this little journey for a minute in my emotions. And I have to admit, I thought about you, and I'm pretty proud of it. I'm going to have to send it to you so you can watch it. But I was pretty proud of it. And when I got back the notes from the director, he was like, it was awesome. Unfortunately, the actor that they had cast originally had said no, and then he said yes, so they couldn't use me. But he was like, had the guy not come back, we would have taken you. I'm like, well, that's all I need to know. So that's all I need to know. So, yeah, I'll send you that.
Yeah, please. I'd love to see that. Also, when actors say to me, what's the best advice for preparing for an audition or a project, I say, put the script down. Script down. I don't mean and see if you're memorized. I mean to create the way you're just talking about. To create what's there going on next to the words. Because if you're just creating with the words, it's only going to be so dimensional on camera. Here's I show this graph. Here's a script, really good script. Here's a really good actor comes along and does what the actor's taught to do, which is play the script exactly the way it's written, and does a great job of doing it. but that's flat and one-dimensional on camera. The camera thinks three-dimensionally. So if you're doing a great job of creating the script, get that part down. And then you bring this other layer to it of something you're thinking and feeling that's associated with the script, is not the script exactly, then you're three-dimensional. And that's one of the problems that actors end up having, is their process teaches them, just take care of the script, do it right, which is absolutely true. But on camera, and this is one of the disconnects between the actor's process and the camera, is the camera thinks three-dimensionally. And if you're just going to do a brilliant job of taking care of the script, you're only going to be so dimensional and only going to be so complex, only going to be so interesting. That's just the way the camera works. So I talk to actors about taking their actor process and putting it all together, but then adding this other element in and showing them how the camera elements and the process elements all can work together. Nothing's a contradiction or a violation. It's just that there's a whole different aspect to it on camera.
Well, I feel like we have a segment in the show called Words of Wisdom. I feel like most of the show has been all words of wisdom coming from you, but is there any particular words of wisdom that you like to share with the audience?
Well, I'm thinking about it now because you brought up the 3 bad habits, and I don't know if I got to the third one.
Oh, yeah.
But I was thinking it, but this is a good word of wisdom. And yes, honestly, I could go on for another 5 hours and keep talking about film camera, and I think you'd find it interesting. But here's another bad habit. And I know that they're taught this way, so they have to reconcile this. Actors think that the scene is the character. And on camera, the character is the character. I'll say to an actor, tell me about the character. And the actor will say, well, I'm the host of a video show, and I have guests on, and we talk and we connect, and I really like them, and they really like me, and then I've got Christian, my boyfriend, and they've never talked about the character. All they've talked about is the situation. So they play the situation on camera, and yet we don't have a character. And actors need to think about who the character is without the material. That's how you're going to pop on camera. Because you have to think about who the character is without the material. So you talk about the human being. I think I've got a siren in the background. Again, if they mute the volume when they're watching something, that's more than a siren. It means that Daniel's show is on fire. That's what that means.
So we are. We're caliente around here.
That's right. If we can mute the volume and still see your character and describe your character, you've got a character the way the camera thinks about character. Your character should be able to be just as recognizable in a high, intense, dramatic scene as they are ordering coffee at Starbucks. And again, if they mute the volume, they're going to see this. They're going to see all their favorite actors who've created a character that's not scene contingent. And then what happens is that character comes into contact with the scene, and then you have conflict between the character and the world that's trying to change the character, and you have real, spontaneous, interesting moments happen as a result. But the scene is not the character. The character is the character. And that's a big issue for a lot of actors, because directors, they think about characters, directors, writers, and casting directors all think about characters who could exist without the material. Your character exists if your character can exist without dialogue. And if you need the dialogue to communicate your character, you don't have a character the way the camera thinks about character. And character the way the camera thinks about character is actually the easiest part of the equation, but it's the most important. And that's, to me, a big oversight. And one of the biggest things I try to show actors is how to make it all work with your process, but the scene is not the character. And if they are relying on that, they will usually kind of, disappear on camera.
Gotcha. I feel like so privileged that I know some of this stuff from taking the classes, and I'm like, yes, I know that. I know how to do that. We're coming down to the last 5 minutes, folks. So this is the website. Make sure you go check them out. From there, you can follow all of his social media pages. If you want to look for the book, here is the cover. Go check it out. How to Steal the Scene and End Up Playing Lead by John Swanbeck. Go check it out. You can also find links on how to purchase the book from there. So go check it out. I have the book. I recommend the book. Get it. If you are a seasoned actor or a newbie and just starting, and you want easy to go to information, use it. This is not your I'm going to read it and put it on my shelf book. This is a take with you book, so make sure you take it. Can folks, you're still offering online classes? Are there still spaces available, and can they reach out for that?
Yes, absolutely.
Just go here?
To the website, yes.
Yes.
Or they can email ASST@blueswanfilms.com.
And we'll make sure to include that in the description of the show, so make sure that you do that. Again, not because I've taken the class do I recommend them. I recommend them because they work. I've used them. I've gotten some work that came after that. Even the jobs that I got a call back and I didn't necessarily get the job, I was complimented on my scene work and the way that I interpret things. So I know that I can tell the difference of my acting skills before taking your class and after. And like I said in the beginning, I was so excited to have you here because things that you've taught me, I don't just use them for acting. I use them for the show. I use them for my advocacy work. Even when advocacy, I have to do videos for promotions or campaigns. You're in my head. I'm like, that doesn't look good. That doesn't look good. Even though the information may be my story, there still has to be a way of presenting that. So thank you. I also wanted to have you on the show as a public thank you for the work that you put into me. I appreciate it.
Welcome. Yeah, I'm glad you're doing it.
Any last comments or words before we go?
Any last comments or words? Any last comments or words? Well, I'll just, the only that are coming to mind are just because they were already in my mind when I was finishing up. I was talking about character. So I'm just going to finish one more thing I was saying about that. Every actor has done this. They get the character breakdown and the scene, and they quickly read the character breakdown and they put it aside so that they can pick up the scene and really just knock it out of the ballpark. And they've thrown away the most interesting part and the most important part of the audition material. So what everyone wants is they want to see you create the character breakdown and then watch the character breakdown interact with the material. But I'm sure most of the actors watching this have done at some point in their time to get the material. And because everything for an actor is about working the scene, they got the material. Okay, good. I want to get up the scene. I really want to act it. And they put aside the most important part of it. So don't make that mistake. When they give you the character breakdown, the three most important words are usually up top. Daniel, sweet, smart, and funny. Okay, there's the character. And then you interact with the scene. And I wouldn't want them to continue making a mistake if they're already making a mistake. The most important thing is the character breakdown. The most important part of the character breakdown is right up top where they describe in a few words who the character is. Bring that to life with your actor's instrument, your heart, your mind, your body, your eyes, your voice, your soul, and then interact with the material, and it'll be amazing on camera.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Again, for everybody out there, if you are new to acting or a seasoned actor and you're looking for a new perspective on the craft, go look for John. Again, he's done wonders for me, and I had a lot of bad habits when I came to you. So he does not smack them out of you. He coaches you into being the better version of you, and I thank you for that. So and then I see some of my fellows in the class who are going on to do some really wonderful things too, and it's so beautiful to see the gradual growth that everybody has. It's really amazing. So if you're not taking classes or workshops somewhere, do it. You'll be glad you did. John, thank you so much for coming on the show. I really appreciate it.
And thank you, Christian.
Hey, thank you. I'm going to put you in the green room for a minute. I'll be right back for you. Give me a second.
All right.
For everybody watching, thank you so much. I am Daniel G. Godson. This has been another episode of Put It Together. My guest today was Mr. John Swanbeck. Make sure that you go check him out. Check his website. It'll be all in the description so you can find it, and check into his Instagram, follow some of his tips, follow him on TikTok, or if you're looking for a class, make sure you check them out. Again, Put It Together Conversations is a show about folks where you come from, where you are now, and what your journey is like. And the idea is to motivate and inspire others to go after their dreams and goals. So if you have a put together story, I look forward to having you on the show. Please get in touch with me on any of the forums. Direct message me either on Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, or Twitter, and let me know that you'd like to be on the show or you'd like to nominate somebody to be on the show. If you're watching us on YouTube, will you do me a favor and scroll down, hit that subscribe button, and leave us a like? We really do appreciate it. For now, I want to thank you. I'm Daniel G. Garza, and hey, put it together.